Hey y'all, welcome to the Holy Comforter Episcopal Church YouTube Bible study. I'm Jimmy Abbott, the priest here at Holy Comforter, and I've got a few reflections for you on the gospel lesson for this upcoming Sunday, Palm Sunday, the beginning of Holy Week. We are so excited to also have Bishop Fisher with us for confirmations, receptions, reaffirmations, for people committing to the way of the cross on Palm Sunday in our church. What a great and glorious thing that will be. Now, just a reminder about Palm Sunday as we start outside of the church and we process in, reminiscent of Jesus' triumphal entry into the city of Jerusalem on Passion Week, Holy Week as we call it. And then the mood quickly shifts in which we read Luke's account this year of the Passion narrative. That's the whole narrative from Jesus' betrayal and arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane to his trial, execution, and death on Golgotha. Now, this is always the conundrum for preachers, is that you have this giant text, the whole story of our salvation. What do you do with it? How do you preach on such a mammoth story? One of the best tips I heard on this is that you pick one small detail, one phrase maybe, from the whole Passion narrative and dive deep on that and use that as the lens to explore the entirety of the gospel that is presented to us in the Passion narrative. As I was reading it this year, one thing struck me, and Jesus is brought before Pontius Pilate, and then he's taken over to Herod, and they're sort of interrogating him, asking him who he is. Both of their guards and soldiers are mocking and ridiculing Jesus. And then it says in Luke chapter 23, verse 12, "That same day, Herod and Pilate became friends with each other. Before this, they had been enemies." Now, there's some sort of irony in this, isn't there? That even at his death, Jesus is reconciling enemies to be friends. Now, we would say this is an unholy collusion between Pilate and Herod, that these are two powers set against the power of the gospel, set against Jesus. But even there, we see that Jesus is bringing people together who had once been enemies. Friends, that's the entirety of the gospel, that we who were once far from God have been brought near by the cross of Jesus. And on the cross, we see Jesus, in a sense, reaching out one hand to God and reaching out one hand to humanity and bringing us together again. That is reconciliation. That is what Palm Sunday is all about. The cross is this image, this icon of reconciliation, of being brought near again, of enemies now becoming friends. And so I ask you, during your Holy Week, during Passion Week, to think about your own enemies. I know you have them, both personally and maybe nationally. I think that we have enemies. And to think about, in your own piety and devotion, how it is that Jesus is calling you to become friends, to allow Jesus to hold you and that other and bring you close again. That is the power of the cross. That is the power of the gospel, that those who had been enemies have now become friends. I mean, gosh, think back to the history of our country. This is a long list of enemies, right? First it was England, then England again, then it was Mexico, then it was each other, then it was Spain, then it was Germany. It was Germany again with Italy and Japan, Korea, Vietnam, communism, Soviet Russia, terrorists. We seem to always have these enemies. And I'm not saying that they were good people. This is not a sort of political comment, other than to say that we always have enemies. And I believe that part of the gospel is calling us is to become friends with God, become friends with each other, to become friends with ourselves. For that is the power of God. So think about that this Passion Week, this Holy Week. How is it that you can lay down the anger and the animosity that you have against enemies and seek them out to become friends instead? thank you for joining me, and I look forward to being with all of you for Passion Week, for Holy Week, and I will be praying for you all as you make your way to the foot of the cross into the empty tomb.